Okay, so we're recording. So this is what I propose to do. Um, for right now, we'll call the show Dad's Rock. Um,
Do you want a
I'll
Z or an S at the end of
what's that?
dad? We originally did it at dad's with a Z for some reason. I don't know why. But
I don't know. We'll worry about that stuff at some other point. That's a creative decision. Um, so I have written down this script where I will introduce the podcast.
yeah,
Um, I'll introduce myself, and then we got the Dad's Rock team. I'll
yeah.
say who I am. I'm going to say I'm here with Joe Coletti and Bobby Sports, and then you guys say, "Hey, I'm Joe. I'm Bobby." Um, then I'll explain a little bit about the podcast. And I've written something here. It's a pro-parenting podcast for those who are navigating the family court system in the state of Texas. As such, both moms and dads will find this podcast important, but you can tell from the title, we're going to focus on the dad's perspective. And then each episode will feature the following segments. So this is kind of like episode one stuff. And I'll talk through segment one, the single dad playbook, two, things every dad should know, three, the moment I remember. And in the future, we'll introduce another segment called, Dad's Rock. And I'll explain that. And basically, if there's anyone you would like to hear from, let us know because we're working on guests right now. And then what I'll say in all of these cases is, I don't know if you've heard podcasts, they'll say like all of the details that you need are in the show notes. So whenever you publish a podcast, there's like a little mini website on Apple Podcast or whatever, and then there's like the notes for each show. Um, and then you put like your email address, any websites, anything like that. So we don't need to worry about whether we have like information at Texas, fathersadvocacy.org or Bobby at like you just whatever it is you put in the show notes, and then you can deal with that later. Um, and then I was going to say before we start, I wanted to let you know that Dad's Rock is sponsored by TFAN or the Texas Fathers Advocacy Network. You can find TFAN at all the usual places on the web or via email, and we'll link to them in the show notes. And then I'll say that's a great place to start with our first segment. So, Bobby, tell us about TFAN, when you started, and why. And then I'll kick that off to you.
Okay.
All right. And then what I'll do is I'm going to keep my phone here. Um, let's try to do, and we can we'll just we're recording this so we can like stop and start. Like it does none of this needs to be live. That's why you just record
Mhm.
it. We can edit it, so we can say, all right, we're going to go into the single. We're going to go into segment one, single dad playbook. Ready, and then we'll do that, and then go into the next one. Okay.
We'll
Now,
probably get through it like, go in the studio and record the song the first time right. So you
yep,
don't have to go back and do a lot of editing and a lot of whatever. But
yep,
yeah, I think you want to get where, like you said, like let's say dream scenario, we get Bill Burr on the show and Bill Burr says something really funny, really poignant.
mm-hmm.
And we take that little cut and we put that all over
Yep, yep,
Instagram, whatever, and then hope that it goes viral and gets a million likes. Bill Burr said this one thing on this show, as opposed to, and if you'd like the whole Bill Burr interview on
right,
the Dad's
exactly.
Rock Cast, click here.
All right, um, good. And then things every dad should know. I don't think we're prepared for that one, or the moment I remember. If there's something you want to talk about, I can talk about something for sure. But I think if we just get through sort of that intro and that first segment, the idea was to have
I like
Joe on
the,
this so we could like,
so should it
hey
be
Joe.
something catchy though? Like, I don't know. I came up with man stuff, but it could be something better. Like man stuff, everything,
Yeah,
what
good,
things every
good.
dad should know, right? But something catchy. It's time
Man
for the
stuff.
section, things every dad should know, as opposed
Yep,
to like the long engaged title.
yep, yep. I got it. Man stuff. And what do we want to call the first one? Right now, in the thing, it's kind of working title, single dad playbook. But what do we want to call the sort of the
Kind of like
legal
that.
stuff?
I
Okay,
kind of like that. I
okay,
kind of like
good.
single dad playbook. I mean, I'm a coach, so I'm a sucker for
Anything with playbook in it, right? Okay,
yeah.
and moments I remember.
Yeah, I think that's I think the first time you pitched it to me was like favorite sports moments with dad,
Yeah.
right? Like more specific. Or it could
Yep.
be favorite moments with favorite, because in the dad's rock at the part end, you're going to do something music, right? So then it could be
Right.
favorite concerts with dad, favorite
Yep.
show I saw with dad.
Yep.
I like the, you know, favorite sports moments with dad because that allows it. It could be a game he took you to, or him throwing the ball in the backyard with you, or
Right.
him teaching you how to, get a baseball stance or shoot a
So you
basketball or
you want
football.
to remember, and we talked that moments I remember obviously takes that to a bigger, more topics, right?
Yep.
Um, which is fine. But I think the idea of like starting off with um, how do we want to describe that? Let's
Two favorite sports moments with dad. That
okay.
keeps it
Yep.
concise, specific on that one. Um, because when you are interviewing someone, you can ask them the question. I mean, that's something that we do with every guest, right? Favorite sports moment with
Yeah.
dad. We
Yep.
can also in the interview say, what are some things from your childhood that stay with you about your time with your father, whatever. What are
Right.
so we could sort of ask that question also, which
Yep.
allows them to talk. And it might just be, my dad was at all my games,
Right.
or my dad, and it could be the bad thing too, right? Which is because I think every interview should include what are some um, things that you took from your childhood with your dad that made you the person you are that you use in your own parenting, and
Yep.
what are some things that, if you feel comfortable talking about, that you know, you learn not to do, like things from your childhood that you say, okay, I'm not going to do that with my kid. Right.
Right. Right. That's another segment. I think that's really good. I'm gonna write that down.
And I guess depending on, because I guess the end like is, I guess you come on and we're celebrating fathers. And so first you learn from your father, right? Some things. And then now you're a father. So you're Pat trying to do some of, with your kid. So there's that
That.
part. And that's separate from the legal custody
Yep.
divorce
Yep.
stuff, which is the more serious.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I got the
And for the
that segment's called Dad's do's and don'ts.
okay,
Right.
all right,
Right. Stuff that you learn from your dad that you want to do, or you're bringing to your own parenting, and stuff that you saw your dad do that you've decided that you want to keep in the past, or however you want to describe it.
yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
And
So
like with
go
man
ahead.
stuff, like I mean, we can come up with a whole,
Yep.
array of topics, but it could even be something simple. I was trying to think like if that question popped up today and we just went like a little round table, what is something
Right.
that you feel like you wish someone had taught you or that you wish that you knew, right?
Right.
Or that could be helpful. Like one of my things is like um when you're going through divorce, the money goes away. So now you're a single dad on 75% of your income, maybe. But trying to have fun with your kids, trying to feed your kids in this economy that we live in right now. I mean, I took my daughter yesterday. She wanted to go out to eat. And we didn't go, we went to Kirby Lane.
Hmm.
I'm in sticker shock, just about the way things cost now. She ordered
Right.
a lemon. The lemonade was like $8. It was $8 for, there was no alcohol in it, by the way. I'm like, it's like a fruit with sugar. Like, how can it be $8? You know what I mean?
Right.
And she ordered a sandwich, which was like literally $16 for the sandwich. And she didn't even like it. You know what I
Right.
mean? She drank two sips of the lemonade. So I spent $25 or whatever on her food. Uh,
A half-eaten sandwich and then
she
two
didn't
sips of
like
lemonade.
the sandwich, and she took two sips of the lemonade. But what are like so my big thing was with dad is how do you stretch a buck as a single? So looking for
Right.
like kids eat free days. Any restaurant that your kid likes, any restaurant that you like, always ask the manager, hey, do y'all have a kids eat free during the week? Or encourage them to try it,
Right.
do
Yeah.
it. Or do you have coupons or things that you give out for, and look for those and make that a part of your, plan. Um, all those kind of things. Looking for ways to feed your kids in economical ways.
Right. All right. Let's, I want to try this for a second. Um, Again, we're going way seat of the pants here right now, Bobby. Okay. So let's say we're doing the intro. Okay. We just got some sort of musical intro that we'll write.
Springsteen.
You'll write. No, it's Bobby Schwartz. Come on, a different
Hey,
BS.
the broad Springsteen on Broadway is now on Netflix.
Yes, yes,
They just brought it back.
yes. Springsteen's no fool. In the middle of his tour, he wants as much attention on him as possible. It's the reason why they call that guy the boss. All right. Okay, so let's get into this. So the other things that I understand that people have coached me is when you do it in a room, right? When you do it in a room and you're all together, then you can actually have more of a conversation where you can cut each other off and all the rest of that stuff. When you do it on Zoom, you have to kind of pause to let the other guy finish because sometimes and the sound will cut out, right?
Okay.
If you go over each other. So that's one of the things to ask that guy Brian Eisenberg is, because then you have a couple of cameras and a couple of microphones, and then they're just filming a conversation. So that's why this is a little different.
Do we mute
But
ourselves when the other person's talking or no?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's some other best practices. Now people do this all the time with on Zoom or remotely, and it replicates the whole. What I don't know is there a way to replicate a conversation and people talk over each other, or is it that they're just doing all this stuff in post production? One thing that you should do well, I've got one of the settings in. Hold on one second. If you go into your settings under record, well, actually, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this at all. I'm doing it because I put myself down. What I'm doing is I'm recording each of our audio output as a separate file. So that way it's not mashed together. So that way we can edit it and cut things out. And then if there are, I think that might be how they do it now that they have that you have every individual conversation, then in post production you can kind of reassemble them. But again, we'll do some more digging on that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk very quickly. I'm going to say, introduce myself, and I'll say, say hi to everyone, Bobby. And then I'll talk about the podcast. I'll go through all of the segments, and then that's when I'll get into this idea that it's sponsored by TFAN Advocacy Network, and then that's a great place to start. Bobby, tell us about TFAN, why you started, and why, when you started, and why. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. I gotta get these glasses off. All right. All right, everyone, welcome to Dad's Rock. My name is David Levy, and with me are Joe Coletti and Bobby Schwartz. Joe's not here, but say hi, Bobby.
How's it going? Hook
All
'em.
right, hook 'em. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Dad's Rock. It's a pro-parenting podcast for those who are managing and navigating the family court system in the state of Texas, among other things. As such, both moms and dads will find this podcast important, but as you can tell from the title, we will focus on the dad's perspective. Each week each episode, stop there. Each episode will feature the following segments. First one is the Single Dad Playbook. This is for dads navigating divorce, separation, and the family court. And Bobby will tell you more about this. The family law system is not built for dads. And here we want to pull back the curtain and help explain how custody works in Texas, what judges actually look at, common mistakes dads and moms make in the proceedings, and how to advocate for yourself. We'll talk a little bit about this today, and then in the future we'll have family law attorneys and advocates and other members of the whole ecosystem to talk about the family law in the state of Texas. Then our next segment will be man stuff, things that every dad should know. These are practical skills that get passed down from generation to generation, and sometimes things that our kids don't know how to do anymore. So what are the things that your dad taught you, and what are the things that you think you want to teach your son and your daughter? Whether that's how to do your own laundry, or cook a meal, tie a tie. We'll talk about these things. We'll have short tutorials, and we'll bring on some guests who can help us with some of these skills. Next segment will be favorite sports moments with dad, kind of in a broader discussion around moments I remember. What's the memory that stuck? What's the game you went to? What's the road trip you took? What's the game your dad came to that you remember that was meaningful to you? Next segment, we'll talk about dad's do's and don'ts. So what are the things that you took from your father that you're bringing to your life as a father today? And what are the things maybe that you're not bringing into your life as a father, the things you saw your dad did and you said, I swear I'm not going to do that for my kids. And then in the future, we'll have another segment called Dad's Rock. And this is where we answer the question, do you ever wonder how your favorite musicians manage fatherhood on the road? And we'll invite musicians and entertainers and other road warriors who spent weeks and months away from their families from home each year. How do they stay present as fathers? What do they sacrifice? What do they like to protect? And what do they tell their kids? We're lining up guests for this one. So who would you like to hear from? Let us know. And connect to us via the email that's in the show notes.
Springsteen had a kid who went to Duke, so he must have done something right.
Or wrong. All right.
Wrote a big check.
Yeah.
To their
That's what he did.
endowment.
He sold a lot of records. But before we start, let me just pause. Before we start, I wanted to let you know that Dad's Rock is sponsored by TFAN, or the Texas Fathers Advocacy Network. You can find TFAN at all the usual places on the web or via email, which we'll link to in the show notes. And that brings us to segment one. It's a great place to start. So in the Dad's Playbook, Bobby, why don't you tell us about TFAN, when you started it, why you started it, and what it's all about?
Started in 2014 when I first went through divorce and my first, foray into the court system for family law to fight for custody of my children and my rights to my children. I realized that it's a isolated, lonely situation. You don't know anything, and you can't believe that family law is coded in the way it is, and that lawyers sort of lay out best options, which are usually not great, because you're a father. And even if I remember my lawyer saying to me one time, I said, "Why is she taking me to court? They don't have a case." And why would her lawyer take that case other than for the money? And my lawyer said, because he has the best client in the world, a mother. Family law likes mothers. They believe children should be with mothers. So just going through that and feeling isolated and not having any answers and not having anyone to go to other than my lawyer, who charges, by the hour, as all lawyers do. It would be great if there was a forum for dads, some organization that you could go to, that you could talk to and could help explain and break things down for you. I reached out to people I'd known who had gone through the process, and that was at least helpful to me because we were then speaking similar language. But you're going to hear a lot of vocabulary words that aren't familiar with, like standard possession, extended standard possession, modified possession. What does that mean? You don't have any experience with the OAG's office. What does OAG stand for? Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to take 25% of your income every month. Even if you're in prison, they're going to take your money. Even if you're unemployed and you get unemployment, they're going to take that money, right? So dealing with that, or if they assign people to your case, like an ad litem, a CASA, a amicus, like all those people, like if you've never dealt with that, you know, um, and just even after a divorce, you get a piece of paper, and it's not one piece of paper. It can be 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 pages of a court order, final decree. You don't always, you have to pour through that thing sometimes to figure things out because it can be a little complicated for people. So having someone you can go to and say, hey, I'm supposed to get the kids or give the kids back, but there's no school on Monday. Like, do I have to give them back Sunday night? Do I keep them Monday and take them to school on Tuesday? Those kind of things. If the parents aren't co-parenting and they're having communication problems, they turn into holy wars because both of them are trying to reach their attorneys on a weekend and trying to pour through a court order to figure out what all this means. So, and what do you do if the other parent isn't cooperating or isn't even following the order that you have? So this happens to dads a lot where they're supposed to get their kids for a weekend and the mother just doesn't return the kids and they don't know what to do in that situation. They're trying to get their kids back. And once some parents feel like, hey, I withheld the kids for that weekend, who says I have to give them back the next weekend or this holiday or that holiday? I'll just keep the kids. And then what do you do in that situation? And then the last is a lot of dads just simply can't afford lawyers. They need help, they need advice, and they can't afford a lawyer to talk to about these things. And they don't know what they're supposed to do. So having somebody out there that can help them. So we're also trying to give dads a voice.
So that's you started in 2014. So you've been doing this for 12 years. Have you had a lot of engagement with dads and moms over the years? Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and the kinds of interactions that you have with the people who reach out to you.
Yeah, it's mostly grassroots where I'll get a phone call or a text message from somebody saying, I got your contact information from, so and so. I'm in the middle of a divorce proceedings, or I'm in the middle of a custody case, or, you know, my ex-wife is not allowing me to see the children. She's withholding the kids from me. Do you have time to meet and talk? And then, so that's kind of what I do. I meet with people and um, try to help them as any way I can. So a lot of times they'll send me their final decree or their court order, and I will read through their court order, and then I will explain, what their rights are, to the kids, or what a lawyer is most likely going to tell them if they went to an attorney. A lot of times I get like, I don't like this situation and I want to change it. Do I need a lawyer for that? And then I explain to them if you go to a lawyer's going to tell you, you know, A, B, and C, most likely.
So that's a good place to pause for a second. Just to I want you to share with the listeners out there. You're not an attorney, so
I don't know.
this you're not. So tell us how you educated yourself on this, because as we've spoken in the past, you've got a Bobby, you've got a wealth of knowledge about not just the ins and outs of the system in Texas, but you know a lot about family law, just and sort of the history of family law, and just want to make sure people understand where you're coming from. That you're not a lawyer, but you know, as they say in the world of internet, you've done your own research, but you've lived it for the last since 2014.
Well, I've had in my own personal life an extensive history of child custody, temporary orders hearings, and court cases and litigation. So I've got to learn from personal experience what my children have gone through and how to best help them, and the lawyers that have been involved and what they did on each side of the aisle. So I learned from personal experience. Secondly, I've befriended quite a few family law attorneys uh, who know about our organization and often suggest to clients, look, I will represent you in the legal case, but I'm going to recommend this nonprofit organization that helps parents that you can go to for further questions and talk to them about, especially, prior to a case, during a case, and after a case. Um, so learning from attorneys, learning from lawyers about how family law works, and also every client who comes to me with a new, fresh, problem, and I'm reading people's decrees, I'm reading people's court orders, and they're sharing with me. I went to a lawyer, and this is what they said. These were the motions that they were going to file. Um, and so, yeah, I'm not an attorney, but I have been in enough where, of these situations and helped enough people and listened where I've been able to learn a great deal. And a lot of times when we suggest and make, when you go to an attorney is going to say, these are the motions we can file. And then they go and they call me back and they say exactly what you said. The attorney said they're not going to do that. They're not going to do this. I have no chance of that, but you can file these motions.
So the you're not here to replace attorneys, but talk to me a little bit about the importance of attorneys in this whole process. Can you or should you do this on your own?
You should never do this on your own, first of all. The first piece of advice I give every client is they should hire an attorney. You never want to go into a family court without an attorney because it's codified law. It's not like trials you see on television. The judge leads the trial and will say Texas Family Code, 3.726. How does the defendant plead, the respondent, the petitioner? And it is very legal jargon. And no matter how smart you think you are, it's always best to have an attorney represent you.
So this is not the stuff we see on TV, people standing up, making objections and making speeches to a jury. This is you're standing in front of a family law judge who knows the law and is citing the code of law and the particular uh, relevant codicils of that law. And you can't possibly go into a court of law expecting that you know as much as the judge or the attorneys.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are examples out there, but almost everybody that I know and every client that I've ever worked with that tried to represent themselves, they got run out of the building, basically. They lost everything. It usually goes very, very badly. Uh, and you're also not standing in front of the judge. Yeah, there's no jury. Yeah, it's a
What does it
very
look like? What does it look like? What's it like when you go through this? What does the hearing room look like?
well, it's a regular courtroom. It's not
Okay.
this, uh, but kind of what you would expect. So there is a place for witnesses to testify. Interesting thing about witnesses, they cannot be in the courtroom for the trial.
Hmm.
So if you testify in a trial, you cannot be in the courtroom. They keep you out in the hallway, awaiting for you to be called to testify, and then you're brought into the courtroom, you testify, and then you leave. So you have no basis for anything else other than your own testimony. And one side can question you. Whoever brings you and calls you as a witness will interview you first, and then you can have the other attorney will then question you. So you'll have the judge, and then you'll have usually the petitioner will be on the right of the judge, and the respondent will be on the left side of the judge
As you're facing the judge?
as you're facing the judge.
Okay.
Yes. And then usually there's a security guard in there because
Hmm.
things get heated. And sometimes like people will try to like, there's occasionally there's violence, like where someone will try to attack somebody. 'Cause they get very upset. So there's a security guard there, and then there's someone sort of basically taking dictation,
Right.
writing everything that was said, creating a transcript. And lawyers can subpoena that transcript that say, "Oh yeah, remember when they said this? Remember when they said that? Remember under testimony that was said."
What does the word subpoena mean? Just in case people don't know what that means. You hear that a lot on TV, but what does that mean?
So there are subpoenas for different things. Generally, a subpoena is issued when they want something. So if, for example, when you go through a typical divorce, they will do something called discovery. and they will subpoena you. It's court ordered discovery, so you have to respond. You
So you
can't
have
just
to respond. Okay.
you have to respond. You can't just ignore it. Now, one of your responses by your lawyer can be, denied. Like we refuse to give that information. But typically in divorce, they're going to ask you for all your bank statements for the last 5 years. They're going to ask for your W-2s for the last 5 years, your credit card statements for the last 5 years, electric bills, gas bills, utility bills, medical bills, proof of insurance, ownership and titles of cars, anything that you own, anything that you have money, IRA, 401k, investments, they want all of it. They're going to take all of your financial records and they're going to sit with them and figure out how much money you have because it's community property state. So they can take and claim half of everything that you have. And that's a very legal and lengthy process. Also in discovery, they can questions. They can ask any kind of question. Have you ever used narcotics? Have you ever had alcohol? Have you ever been drunk? Have you ever been arrested for a DUI? Have any of your family members had problems with alcohol, drugs? Are those relatives ever around the children at Christmas or Thanksgiving? They can ask any question that they want. And they can also subpoena the school and the school district for school records like report cards, and they can subpoena the doctor's office for medical records for the kids, immunizations and shots. So essentially, you can file a subpoena also for deposition. They can bring you in and interview you on videotape and ask you any question, essentially. And then they have a record so that when they bring you to trial and you go on the witness stand, if, for example, they asked, have you ever had too much to drink at a party?
Right.
And in deposition, you said, well, there was that one time in college at the fraternity house, I had too many drinks. And then when they ask you in trial and you say, I don't have a drinking problem. And then they can say, well, in deposition
Mm.
on January 13th, when you were asked that question, you said that you have been drunk and you have a history. They can make a claim that you have a history of drinking too much.
Because
Even
you
if it was,
did it once.
yes, exactly.
So the process of discovery is when both sides, and I assume is this the case probably that both sides can ask for information from the other side, or is it just the person who's requesting the divorce?
It's always going to be standard that both parties do discovery.
Okay. So both parties do discovery where they're asking for information, and this thing called a subpoena is basically a demand from the court that says you have to comply. They're asking for things, you need to provide them. A deposition is when you come in and you're with someone from the court, attorneys who are recording an official statement that is part of the court record. So this is pretty complicated already. Um, Now, one of the things that you mentioned drug use or alcohol use. We're talking about from a kind of a baseline here. What Dad's Rock is about is just assuming that dads are good guys. Like these are good fathers. Like this is not necessarily for the people who everyone can kind of recognize are not doing right by their wives or their family and their kids, right? Legal trouble, drug problems. We're just talking about a regular guy who maybe had a couple beers or a few beers in college. That could be 3 years ago, it could be 25 years ago. And they're being brought into this system. So talk to me about that. And you had mentioned earlier about how family law is kind of tilted towards moms. How did that happen?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, um, these trials would be very short if people just went and said, yeah, he's a good dad, she's a good mom, and we're trying to, figure out, how to divide the house and the assets and the money and the kids and who gets the kids on Thanksgiving and Christmas and blah, blah, blah. Right. There would be not much of a family law system if they did that. Instead, lawyers basically have created, and family law has created a toxic culture, to use a trendy term. And the
Mm,
culture is now you have to show that your client is Mother of the Year, Mother Teresa, a saint, the Virgin Mary, and that the father is somehow a violent mental health, has mental health problems, drug addict, alcoholic, something like the children are unsafe. Like that's where the attorneys are trying to take. So because at the end of the day, a judge doesn't know you at all. It doesn't, your kids aren't in the courtroom. The only the judge is listening to two lawyers tell two
mm,
stories. And at the end of that trial, they get to make decisions that will affect those children's lives until they're 18 years old. Their entire childhood is going to be affected by this judge's opinion of what that lawyer says and what that lawyer says. And so the lawyer's going to take anything that was ever done. Uh, you know, you went to Cabo one weekend and you tried, I don't know, Molly or ecstasy, with your wife. But she's going to say, "Well, I didn't do it. He did it." Right? And she's going to tell her lawyer that. And her lawyer is going to have you in as like your Timothy O'Leary. And like you spend
agree
most
with
of your
you.
time high on acid, and we can't trust him as a father. Like they're gonna piece together little bits and pieces of information and tie it into a story that the lawyer is going to tell. And here's where the evidence comes in. Other side is going to cross-examine, and they're going to say, "When have you ever seen them high?" And they're going to be like, "Cabo, 1993." you know, Spring break in Padre, 2003. They're going to be bringing. Now, there are judges who can see through that, but they're
Mhm.
going to tell a story. And that's unfortunately, the toxic part of that, which is they're trying to say anything they can. She took them to school. She fed them breakfast and she made them brush their teeth and did homework with them and read them a bedtime story. They're going to Those five things show that she's a good mother. What they're going to leave out is that she's a heroin addict with train tracks on her arm, right? Leaves the children unsupervised in an apartment with no food for 3 days, right? That's not going to make it to the courtroom. They're only going to tell you the good side, right? And the same
Mhm.
thing on the other side. So that unfortunately, that's the toxic part. And what the second part of your question was?
Just the idea of how the family court system kind of evolved this way, right? We had spoken earlier, like why is it so? Because again, it's not even the story you just told. The point is not that like moms are bad. That's not what this is about. But the system is sort of based on uh, a uh, a bias towards moms.
Towards dads, yeah. Um, so essentially, family law is outdated, at least in most parts of the South, especially in Texas. It's an antiquated system that was mostly created in the 1950s because child custody cases and parents getting divorced wasn't really a big thing because of the nature of the relationship with the church, and the community. But divorce really started to explode in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So in the 1950s, men worked, and generally a lot of mothers didn't work. They stayed home and took care of the kids, and dad was the provider. So when divorce really started becoming a big American thing where people were not just getting divorced, but actually going to court and trying to have not just a divorce case of who stays in the home and who gets another place to live, but who gets the children and child support, and those things became codified. It made sense, right? Well, dad works, mom doesn't. So mom will get the kids, dad will work, and he'll pay for mom to take care of the kids. And since dad doesn't work on weekends, we'll give the kids to dad every other weekend. So they came up with that system in the 1950s, and it's still the same system we have in 2026. And it's completely outdated. Now, have they made changes and updates? Yeah, but that's standard possession, which is the number one possession schedule and that's kind of the law. And then
So
there are
explain
other
that for a second. Explain that for so standard possession. That's a legal term. So explain what that means.
The standard possession means typically fathers, like 90% of the time, they get a standard possession schedule, which means they have their kids first, third, and fifth weekends, and they're with mom the rest of the time. And then they alternate holidays and their summertime. But, you know, it's essentially dads don't get their kids for 12 days and then they get them every other weekend because those fifth weekends don't happen that often.
Right.
Sometimes they happen when you would have them anyway. Like in December, they might happen when you're have them for winter break or Christmas break, or they happen in July when it might be your summer possession schedule anyway. So there's not a lot of fifth weekends, but every other weekend you get your kids. But you can't be a functioning parent when you don't see your children for 12 days and then you try to catch up with them every other weekend. So those moments are gone forever. And that's the typical standard possession schedule. And whereas family law has ebbed and flowed and changed, is that they're getting more extended standard possession schedules now, where you get 1 day a week with the kids, which a lot of times they'll do a Thursday. So every Thursday
Hmm.
you'd have children, and then when you have your weekend, you would actually have them Thursday through the weekend. So that's a
Hmm.
little bit better. Then you're not taking 12 days off from your kids. It's less time. You're a little more involved, and you also get a school day in there. And that's just typical. What we think and what we're fighting for and promoting is a 50-50 schedule where parents start off on equal footing. They're 50% of the time with mom, they're 50% of the time with dad, and then they share in the school week, they share in the weekends, and that we think it should start that way. And then if you can prove that it's in the best interest of the children because a parent is neglectful or irresponsible, or there's a drug problem or an alcohol problem or mental health issues or something that would actually put the children in imminent danger, then you can start peeling it and pulling away the 50-50. But it shouldn't start like this. So
So a in terms of what we're talking about here at Dad's Rock, and also potentially what TFAN is talking about, if you were to snap your fingers and make a change to family law across the country, but in the state of Texas, it's the default is this 50-50. Like, let's start there with the assumption that there's a quote unquote good mom on this side and there's a good dad on the other side. Let's start there because children need both their parents to raise them. And then as things move forward, if circumstances change, behavior warrants, then it kind of gets tilted from 50-50 to maybe, for whatever reasons those are, one of the parents gets them for more for longer periods of time.
absolutely. In fact, the Texas Fathers Advocacy Network is one of many groups that have been working to push the state legislature and politicians to introduce bills into the House that would make the new standard possession would be 50-50. We think that should be law. It should be 50-50 to start out with as a rule. When judges walk into a courthouse here in Williamson County or Travis County or throughout Texas, the law basically is standard possession. So they're trying to decide which parent they should give standard possession to. There has to be extenuating circumstances or reasons that the other parent is a very hands-on parent or whatever like that. They've been very involved in the kids' lives, that they would do something besides that because that's already like, but that's the law, right? You're having to
Mm-hmm.
prove to them in an uphill battle why you should get more time. There are 50-50 schedules that are given out too, but that's not the norm. That is not the norm by any, especially the younger the kids are, the more judges seem to think that they should be with the mother, right? So, interesting thing about lobbying the state legislature. There was a bill that was going to be introduced that would have changed family law in Texas to a 50-50 schedule as the new standard possession. And it was family law attorneys hired a very powerful lobbying group to lobby the state legislature, and that bill got buried in the House and never saw the light of day and never got to a floor vote. So the biggest proponent against families having equal rights and equal time with their kids is lawyers, because that would have been a game changer if Standard possession, which also then makes child support and who gets the house and who gets the car and who gets has to pay for health insurance and all that, that financial inequality along with the time lost with the children, that guarantees a fight. A parent says, I don't want my kids every 12 days, and I'm going to pay, 25% of my income in child support, 100% on health care, but I'm only going to have my kids. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my car, my 401k. That forces a fight, right? But if it just
Mm,
started that way, if you knew when you went to court, unless you can prove that they're violent, that the kids are in danger, or that they're a raving lunatic, alcoholic, drug addict, you're not going to get, because that's the law, right? If the law was that, there's no reason to go to court anymore.
right,
Because
right,
Texas is a no fault, no contest divorce state. You don't have to go to court to get divorced. You can say no fault divorce, no contest divorce. We are coming up with our own agreement. We're getting divorced and we're going to do this with the children, and this is going to be the child support and who gets the house. You can do that and draw it up. You don't even need the court system, right? You go get eventually signed by a judge, but you can mediate that.
right.
And that's what would happen if you had standard possession. But because you don't, lawyers make a killing. They make a lot of money. And this is also something that happens too. Uh, this happens all the time to clients of ours. The initial agreement when they decide, when someone says, "Hey, I want a divorce," is they come up with an agreement and they decide that they're going to mediate a settlement so they don't have to go to court, so they don't have to fight, don't have to make the children chess pieces. And then her friends or her family will tell her, you should go talk to a lawyer first. And a lawyer was going to tell her, if you do that, there's no money. You want the money, you want the house, you want the car, you want his
You want the
retirement,
stuff.
then the possession has to change. Because the more time you have with the kids, the more money you can get, the more the court will say, well, it's in the best interest of the kids because the kids are with mom most of the time. So she's essentially the one supporting them. So he has to pay. So that they force the fight. They convince a lot of people who don't want to fight that you have to fight just because it's in your best financial interest to fight.
All right. Bobby, let's cut that off there because we can go on forever. I want to check your time. Because all right, that's our first segment. That's great. And we can go off and, could say like, well, next week we're going to have someone from the legislature and we'll bring on a family law attorney or go into whatever those things are.
Then we get to where I'm not talking hardly at all, right? The
Yeah,
guests talk.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, right. So we could do a couple things now. We could just say sayonara and record this and see how this works, and I can transcribe and do all that stuff, which might be a good thing to do. But we could also talk about like I didn't prepare anything, but for the other stuff. But I think we were talked about like man stuff we want to have, whether it was someone on our Zoom conversation showing how to tie a tie, or that's where we would edit and go and show people grilling in like your backyard
Giving
or
us
whatever that is.
or giving us tips on how to grill without
Yeah,
having to
yeah,
physically
yeah,
show us
yeah.
something.
I got tips, but who's going to listen to me? Like I
I
got
think
my
everybody
grilling
knows
tips. Yeah,
everybody knows something that they can
yeah,
pass on. You
right.
know what I mean? Like one of the
You want
things I would probably be good at that I mean, like, what's something that you feel like would be helpful for people, right? So I know how to vacation with kids, right?
that would be great. Yeah,
In an economical way. So for example, most parents think at some point they would like to take the kids to Disney or Universal and do like a trip,
all right.
right?
So stop here for 1 second. So what's like? All right. Now let's get into man stuff. Things that every dad should know. Um, Bobby, you were talking about taking vacations with kids. So tell us a little bit about that. Why are you good at that?
So it's yeah, how do you stretch a dollar and give your kids, the ultimate you're going to have your summer possession. So every dad gets more time during the summer right? Where you're not in the school mode where every other weekend. So you're going to get either 30 days or divide that 30 days into two 14-day periods. So you can take a vacation with your kids. So I would say save your money all year to take a special vacation. Uh, Orlando's great because usually you get cheap flights to Orlando. You can get cheaper hotels in Orlando. And then you can book passes to Universal Studios, which has four different parks. And a lot of times you can like buy 2 days, get 2 days free at Universal. Um, and so I was able to take my kids, and we do this every year. We go down to Orlando and we kind of learn like how do you do this sort of cheaply? Like don't go stay in a Universal Resort hotel. I would say because they're going to be more expensive, right?
So stay off property, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, if you have money, then it's great. It's one-stop shopping because they have shuttles that go like that. But you didn't hear it from me. But you can you can get those shuttles by going to the hotel, even if you're not a guest, right? Uh, so find a cheap hotel in Orlando. So you get the cheap plane ticket, you get the cheap hotel, and then you get like a cheap rent-a-car. And then feed the kids like get a hotel that has like a free breakfast,
Hmm.
and then eat a big breakfast at the hotel, and then either go to like a Walmart or a Target and buy food and snacks to make and pack your own sort of lunch and snacks for the kids because they will let you bring food in to the theme parks, which was a big surprise for me.
Mm.
And you pack snacks and food and meals for the kids, and then you go to the theme parks. Buy 2 days, get 2 days free, or buy 3 days and get 3 days free. All the different things. It really brings the cost down. And then, once you're in the park, you can ride as many rides as you want, as many times as you want, all day and all night until they close. And when the kids get hungry, you made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a turkey sandwich that you got a loaf of bread from the grocery store and a pack of turkey or whatever like that, and some drinks for the kids. Maybe get like a water bottle and then just fill it
Right.
up, water throughout the day. Because the way the theme parks get you is the ticket is one thing. The ticket's not going to be cheap. But
Yeah.
once you're in the park, it's hot, it's humid, you're going to get thirsty, the kids are going to get hungry, and the food there is a fortune. I mean, it's a fortune. I mean, I remember being at Disney and a hamburger, French fries, and a drink was $20, right? That's per meal. Okay.
Right.
So that'd be
Yeah.
$60 if you have two kids. All right. And they put some sort of electronic code at the bottom of the soft drink cup. So if you go to the soft drink machine to get a refill,
Right.
it says you've already had a drink. You have to pay for another refill. Right. So these, yeah, and it's a small cup, by the way. It's a small,
Right.
it's
It's
not,
not. It's not the big gulp. Right.
yeah. So um, y- just by packing your own food, you've already saved $60, for the three of you or whatever, how many kids you've got. And they're probably gonna want to eat again, and they're certainly going to be thirsty. So, parking is a fortune. Paying for food inside is a fortune, and then of course, kids going to want to run through and say, "Oh, I want, to go to the gift shop and buy the Iron Man mask or whatever like that, or
Oh
these
yeah.
things,
Yeah.
which are all a fortune and overpriced." And most of the time, so there's a Walmart in Orlando. You can go to the Walmart. They have an entire Disney section of Harry Potter keychains and all those things,
Right.
and their Walmart prices it's $3.99 to $5 for a keychain as opposed to $20 for a keychain inside the
Mm.
park. So you can do all the things, feed your kids, have fun without, you know, and keep your expenses down.
And you still get the great Disney memory, so you're not damaging their
Yeah,
brand in any way.
what we do is we get a hotel and we drive near a Universal Resort hotel. We park somewhere and then we walk the rest of the way to the resort hotel, and then we
Right.
take the
Shuttle.
shuttle. Also, there are hotels that offer free shuttles to Disney and to Universal. So you don't even have to do that part. You could just
Right.
find hotels that do that. especially in the Universal area or in the Disney area.
Right.
Um, and then when you're looking to eat out, right? Instead of going to, 5-star restaurants, Michelin restaurants, Cheesecake Factory, whatever, you know, I tell my kids, I say, like Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, you know, also because they're kids. That's what they're
Right.
used to eating at home.
Yeah.
That's what they want to eat anyway. I don't need to be like, hey, we're in Orlando. Let's read reviews and find the trendiest restaurant. Now, maybe
Right.
like one night while you're there,
You do something like that. Yeah.
but if you're on a very tight budget and you feel like, well, there's no way I'll ever be able to take my kids to Disney, that's a pipe dream that I'll never have, right? I lost everything in the divorce. I have no money. There, you can do it. You just have to plan it. It's about planning and execution.
Right. All right. Let me give you my man stuff. Things every dad should know. This might benefit from a hands-on demonstration. But over the years, Bobby, I learned how to make a great burger. Um, I learned how to make a great burger on the grill. This only works on the grill, um, which is where I made most of my burgers. Lived in Connecticut for a long time and grew up with the gas grill in the backyard, but it works on any kind of grill. So you have your grill. The grill needs to be on as high as possible. It doesn't need to be on for like 20 minutes beforehand, but you want to start with it high. Uh, Put that to the side for a
Is
second.
this a gas grill or a
Is
charcoal grill?
it work? My experience has been with a gas grill, but the techniques work on any grill because I've done this camping and I've done this on a charcoal grill. So the best, there are other ways to do this, but the best way for me was always buying ground beef, and depending on your taste, you can get ones with a little bit more fat, a little bit less fat. I like the fattier ones. I For me, I think they taste better. Um, and so you ball them up into, I don't know, maybe I have a big hand, but like almost like a tennis ball size ball, and on either on a cookie sheet or on some wax paper on the counter, you take the balled meat, right, and you throw it down, and so it makes that great sound. It goes splat. Then you pick it up and you push it down on the other side, so you get kind of a circuit, that circular patty, and you can kind of take your fingers and kind of pinch it on the side so it looks kind of nice. It looks like the patties that you get in the freezer. Do that for as many burgers as you want. Salt and pepper it on both sides. So salt, pepper, flip them over, salt, pepper. Okay. Um,
Kosher salt or regular salt, any kind of salt?
Any kind of salt I use. I've been using kosher salt for years, but it really doesn't matter. You can get as fancy schmancy on that as you want. Some people, and I used to also like marinate the meat with a little bit of maybe balsamic vinegar or olive oil. But if you get good meat with a little bit higher fat content, you don't need any of that stuff. If you want to do it, that's fine. Then you just do the marinade first, and
And
then you
salt
make
and
the
pepper
ball.
is enough. You don't have to.
Salt and pepper's enough. Salt and pepper's enough. Okay. But whatever you do, you get to the point where you make those patties, you get that great splat sound, you flip it over, you get your patties. Okay. Now you take it to your grill. You cook it. So the grill's on real hot. You open the grill up, or you're on your campsite, right? Make sure the grill is clean, as much as possible. So before that, prep your grill. Um, and then immediately turn the grill down, not all the way, but go from like super high to medium, and get it clean. And then I usually use like Pam cooking spray or some other kind of cooking spray around the grill. And you get a spatula, you take your burgers and you put them down on the grill and wait for just a couple of seconds and flip them over immediately. Okay, because what you want to do is you want to sear the juices in the meat on both sides immediately. But you put them down, a couple of seconds, you flip them over. Now, here's the key thing, Bobby. This is the trick: is when you have your grill, right? Your grill has got the 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 bars there. So you want to flip over the grill, flip the burger over the grill so it looks the same way. So they're parallel. So it's like you just kind of flipped it over, And that's key because this is the technique that I learned, which is now you've got a couple of flips that you need to make. So you've got it on one side and the other side, and then you rotate 90 degrees. So it's called the crisscross method. So once you do that initial flip, which is just kind of like the pre-chorus in a song, right? You do that initial flip, and then you let it sit there for maybe about, I don't know, if your grill is hot, it starts hot, it does the searing, then you do it for maybe, I don't know, a minute, maybe 90 seconds, and then you turn it sideways. Okay, you turn it sideways. All right, so now on the bottom of the grill, you've got this thing going because you had the seared into the side of the burger this way and then this way. Okay, then you wait another minute to 90 seconds. Then you flip it over, right? And you try to flip it over exactly the way you had it. So
Okay.
now on the other side, you'll start to get the the grill marks on the burger. Again, another minute or so, and then you turn it 90 degrees. So now when you do that, you've got crisscross on the other side. And just to make sure, after about a minute or so, you flip it over. You can pat the push the like your spatula or your tools onto the burger just to see if it's ready. If it's still very mushy, it means it's still red on the inside. You may like it that way, but generally, if you can do a minute or so on either side, this way, 90 degrees, then flip it, and then 90 degrees, you get that crisscross method, and that burger will be cooked all the way through. And I found that makes the greatest burger.
Okay.
How about
I'm gonna have to,
that?
get a grill and try that.
Man stuff. Right.
Yeah, I've always never liked any burger that I've ever cooked. I just can't get it right. Either it's burnt on the outside and completely raw in the middle, or the inside gets cooked and it's just unedible. It's like dry,
Yeah.
and or I could use it as a weapon. So,
Yeah, the basically the relatively constant motion prevents that from happening. And the other tip for this is don't skimp on the salt. You think like a little bit of salt, and you go like put more salt on than you think. It actually adds a lot more flavor, brings out the flavor of the meat. And if it, I've rarely had a burger that tasted like you'd have to accidentally pour the whole thing out on a burger for it to taste too salty. I mean, it generally makes the burgers taste pretty good. So,
yeah, maybe that's my problem. I never use salt for anything in any of my cooking. I like never use salt.
all right,
And maybe that's why I'm a terrible cook.
okay,
There you go.
there you go. Well, that's
Someone told me when I was a kid salt was bad for you and it leads to high blood pressure or something like that. So I was like, okay, I just won't eat salt.
yeah. Well, there's so
I know it's in
I
everything. It's in
yeah,
everything, but I never add it. I never get like, French fries and go add more salt or, whatever.
well, yeah, of course. That's crazy. That's craziness. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So that's our man stuff. Bobby gave us tips on how to have a really cost effective and fun vacation down in Orlando, and I told you how to make a burger. So that's great.
There you go. I like
Okay.
it. All right.
All right. Let's. That's our first episode. So my hope is that this records this time, and it saves, and it doesn't crash my computer, and then I'll share it with you, um, just the raw footage, and then we'll see what we want to do with it. But I think if it comes out well enough, we can. It could be like our demo, and
Yeah, so we'll try one with a dad. And maybe if we can get Joe. He texted me, I can't, I'm not at home. So I guess,
okay,
um, but as a practice run, do one with him and say, or if you have a friend who just, would like, now we practice like, because what we really want is a dad who could come tell your story.
yeah,
You know,
exactly, exactly,
whatever, in 1993, I got divorced and, I ended up with this schedule. I lost my house, I lost my car, or whatever like that, or,
yeah,
and I had to, you know, and then what we'd like to get to is let them tell their story, and then that opens up sort of ideas for us because one of the, like dating. How do you date as a single dad?
Yeah,
Like because now you're single again,
right.
and a lot of guys are thinking, okay, there is, not all dads are meant the same and are built the same, but there are dads who's like, well, she was driving me crazy and I was unhappy. I was in a loveless, sexless marriage, blah 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 blah. Well, now she's gone, and like some dads don't mind the schedule.
Right.
They're like, okay, I'll focus on my weekends with the kids, and the rest of the time, I'm a single bastard dude.
Yeah.
Now, I find the dads who have good jobs and make good money and can go
Hmm.
get like a place in the domain where they can go down to Rock Rose and be a single guy,
Right.
are having a different experience than the one who ends up with, a place in Pflugerville or Hutto in a not great area,
Right.
and hates his life every time he comes home to that apartment and doesn't feel safe. And that look on your children's face when they come in. So money can really affect your ability, but there are dads who's like, still, how do I date as a single parent? Because
Yeah.
now you can only see, you know, people. And then those are also legitimate questions. How early or how long should I wait
Should
before
you
I
wait?
introduce my girlfriend to my kids?
Right.
Because I can't see her when they're with me until I introduce her. So some guys they fall in love very quickly and they're like, "Oh, I want to introduce her to my kids." And if you have a daughter, it's like, how many girls do you want to bring around your daughter?
Right.
Dad's girlfriend of the week. You know.
I hear you. All right.
So
There's nothing. There's no going to be no shortage of stuff for us to talk about. So let me go do this stuff, and then when are you talking to that guy, Brian?
I don't know. I'm gonna try to reach out again tomorrow
Okay.
and see if I can set something up. Maybe I can get him to come to lunch one day this week. Let me know if
Oh
you want
yeah,
to do
that's
lunch
great.
one day this
Let,
week.
let me look. Let me look at my calendar. Let me look at my very busy calendar. Wait. Um,
What are you
I
doing?
can.
What are you doing Saturday at 8 a.m.?
Why? I'll tell you what I'm doing, but why are you asking? What are you doing that you want to invite me to?
Oh, well, I may need someone to help run a standing long jump competition at a track meet, which is
Uh,
actually closer to you because it's at St. Andrews High School,
uh,
which is down south.
yep.
So,
I, uh, I'm going in for an MRI on Saturday morning to
okay.
check the prostate. So it's going to be a rough morning for me.
To do MRI for that?
Yeah, they do an MRI, just especially when you do new establishing care. It's interesting, Bobby. I'm going to stop recording on this one, not because I care.
No, no.